It's 2 weeks and 1 day, from July 16, 1981 to October 31st, 2003. To put that in context, I was in Form 1 when Dr. Mahathir took power. I was in Kabul when Dr. Mahathir retired. Saudara Lim Siang has been in politics since 1966 and was one of the longest serving Secretary Generals for DAP. He's now the DAP parliamentary leader. Today, in a very rare occasion, we have both of them talking about the one thing that has got them together in the last 1.5 years. And so, one of the questions people want to ask is, how did you all get together, can work together?
Throne. The first occasion really was when, on that, it was in some people, but the fact is that when you want personal things that you have had before,
I think we came together because we agreed of a successful, harmonious objective of saving the nation.
The objectives that was set by people and the religion. But here we have a man who publicly admits that to him cash is king. When the company has
more divided in race and religion, and also we are our Prime Minister has launched the international initiative of a global movement of moderates, neither global, no movement, and not a moderate nation anymore. I think these are things we have to reset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've been very. So you want to add something?
I just want to remind people that the government has been accusing the opposition of getting foreigners to interfere in our internal affairs. Now he's going to see Mr. Trump, obviously, in order to try and clean up his image in this country. This is the highest, the peak of global foreign interference in our domestic politics.
Do you think it'll wash with the people of Malaysia, sir, him going to the White House?
Well, that is what he believes he would happen, but I don't think the people of Malaysia would be taken in.
Okay. So both of you have been campaigning on fighting a kleptocrat and his government, right? And we've had this in the last few months, press statements, dramas, road shows and all that. But on the chance that your coalition that you've set up, Pakatan Harapan, wins the next general election, what would your government policies be? And what kind of campaign are you going beyond just Dr. Sri Najib Razak? I mean, not just one man, right? But what would your policies be? What would you do to correct what you think has gone wrong in the country?
We think we have the answers to many of these problems, but the answers can only be implemented if Najib is not there. That also means that if Najib is there, he cannot use the same strategies that economic achievements are reduced, so that they come together. At that time, there is less fear instead of domination. So at that time, we will think of ourselves as Malaysians. That is my belief. So we work towards it.
Yeah. Okay. So, sir, going back to what we said just now about how far have you gone to get the Malays convinced that they can ditch Barisan Nasional?
Yeah, but the thing is that the Malays still feel threatened. They fear that others might dominate them, that they may lose out somehow in this country. So because of that, they tend to put a great emphasis on their race. We don't like to have racism in this country. But that is the feeling of intellectuals. But on the ground, ordinary Malay in the villages, they still entertain that kind of identity, that they are Malays and that they are, well, those people in the rural areas are largely poor people, and that they need political strength in order to protect themselves. And because they need political strength, they tend to support parties which are race-based.
Okay. So I was asking you earlier, and I said, how far is the resonance to get the people in the Felda settlements to at least hear you guys out? And you said there's some success in that. So do you think that is a good start, or what do you need to do more to get the Malays to at least support Pakatan Harapan?
Well, definitely we want to do more. But I think the coming elections will be a critical election, because we break this myth that UMNO is Malay, Malay is UMNO. And to break this myth, it is important to able for the rural Malays. I think the urban Malays are fairly conscious. Together, as in the last elections, there was a political tsunami, which was not only of the Chinese or the Indians, but also all urban Malays as well. But if we are to win power, I think there must not only be a political tsunami in the urban areas, there must be a political tsunami in the rural areas, which means that the Malay voters in the rural areas must be conscious that it is within their hands to bring about change, and that change need not come from UMNO. In fact, we'll be doing UMNO a great service if UMNO is defeated, because that's the only way for UMNO to reform. And so long as UMNO is in power, you will end up as a global kleptocracy. So we will be doing a service to UMNO to give the opportunity to go into the opposition benches.
Why would you want to save UMNO?
No, you don't have to save UMNO. There's a collateral consequence.
Yeah. So I think we talk about the Malay voters. I think the other thing is, what do you think are the other obstacles for Pakatan Harapan to win the elections in the next general elections? Could it be the vote bank in Sabah or Sarawak, or any other issues?
Well, I think Sabah and Sarawak, even now, is no longer the fixed deposit for the BN. They have now become very concerned about their own state. They talk of being Sarawakians and Sabahans and all that. We have to accept the fact that they don't feel that they are a full part of the Malaysian scene. So we have to allow them to find their own strength and to find how they can do things for themselves. But at the same time, of course, we want them always to be a part of Malaysia. And so far, they have not shown any inclination towards separatism. But they do talk about Sabah for Sabahan and Sarawak for Sarawakan.
So this talk didn't really come out when you were in power. Why do you think it's coming out now?
It's because the central government is very weak and is not able to cater to the needs of Sabah and Sarawak. There are, in fact, some 20 points that they talk about, which needs to be studied and given due consideration. But during my time, of course, they were 100% with the government, with the central government.
I think started to dawn on UMNO leaders that they can lose power. That's very reflected by the statement or the block by the Minister for Communications and Multimedia. And I think, as I've said, that all that we need is a 10% swing of Malay voters from Barisan Nasional to Pakatan Harapan, but as well as to sustain and maintain the urban voter support. There is a sense of disappointment, disillusionment, and there is a sense that is hopelessness, in fact. And we must prevent the fallout of this to ensure that they should reignite hope, confidence, and expectation to be able to maintain or even to improve on the voter turnout. So if we can have 10% swing of Malay voters in the rural areas and the 5% swing of the voters in the urban areas, I think the Pakatan Harapan will admit it to Putrajaya, and in fact in a few other states as well.
Okay. When you say that, have you ever considered the role PAS has? I think Pakatan Harapan has drawn a line and said, you're with us or you're not with us, which is very characteristic of your personal philosophy, sir. But do you think PAS will, if they do decide to be a spoiler and contest and have, instead of straight fights, have three-cornered fights. What kind of impact do you think PAS will have?
Exactly as you said, it is a spoiler. Since his formation, it has never won enough seats to form a government at the federal level. He can win in Kelantan and maybe Terengganu and maybe even Kedah. But apart from diluting the strength of the rural people, PAS is actually not doing anything that is good for the country. As a Muslim, I find that PAS has made interpretations of Islam that is against the teachings of Islam, but has succeeded in dividing the Malay Muslims into two separate entities. And this is not advocated by the teachings of Islam, but people become so fanatical towards the leader, not the teachings of Islam. Because we see in the history of religions that people tend to cling to their leader more than to the teachings of the religion. That is why in Christianity you have Calvinists and so many different groups of people because of the teachings, not because of the actual religion. Religion tends to bring people together, but the teachers tend to break up because of personal reason. And here in Malaysia, this is what has happened. Because PAS made use of Islam, they have managed to divide the Muslims of Malaysia, the Malays, who belong to the same sect, are all followers of Imam Shafi'i. And before the advent of PAS, there was no break between the Muslims of Malaysia. They were all one, belonging to the same Sunni sect.
I think there's a need for political clarity, that the people must be able to be very clear as to the choices before them, and that they must be able to tell them that what is position, what are your other choices, that we should not present a very confused and a muddled situation, especially we are so near to the next general election, so it can be any time. When Najib comes back from the White House, or after he presents his budget on the 27th October, even if it's next year, if you're already on the 5th year, there's only is less than 9 months before May, and it is very important that the people can see. And this task of saving the nation should be borne by Malaysians regardless of race, religion, region, or even party politics. It must be the responsibility of all Malaysians, and that's why I think we should be able to try to reach out to the 3.5 million UMNO members and to try to reach out to the 1 million UMNO PAS members, because PAS under Hadi is definitely very different from PAS under Nik Aziz or Adeno or Yus Rawa, which are more inclusive in approach and more tolerant. And I think this is important, that the people should see how we can bring about the resetting of national building directions and policies.
So from both your answers, I get a feeling race and religion is very dominant in our national discourse, in our politics, rather than issues of the kleptocracy, the economy. Do you think, agree with me, that race and religion is the dominant topic, or what should the narrative be from what you see?
It's not really religion. It is the interpretation of religion by these people, which is mostly very wrong, very much against the teachings of Islam itself. This is a problem when people attach themselves to the interpreter. If he becomes a leader, they pay homage to him, they look upon him as if he's, in many countries, they look upon him as God. In India, this man who recently was convicted of rape had 18 million supporters who look upon him as God. That is a problem with religion. Religion itself is a force for uniting people to do good. The way of life of the Muslim would have made them the most successful people in the world. But when in the hands of these leaders and interpreters, they translate it into different things altogether, so much so that they will cause the same people with the same religion to fight each other.
But do you think the narrative should go beyond this to the economy, to people's pocket for the next election?
For some people, religion is everything.
I see.
I think we should. In fact, the question of kleptocracy, the question of nation building, where we see the phenomenon of a worse racial and religious polarization, as well as our economic well-being. These are all symptoms of that we have got lost from the whole nation-building objectives of Merdeka dream that we should be celebrating after 60 years. And it is time to get back, which are supposed to be ahead of other countries, but we have lost out to South Korea, lost out to Taiwan. I still remember 60 years ago, where was Taiwan? Very poor, very backward. You don't even think South Korea was not in our radar. But now they are ahead of us, and it is time that we must get all these policies together so that we continue to be a progressive, prosperous, united, and a model nation.
Okay. One of the main things that has happened in the last 1 year is both the 1MDB issue and FGV. It has dominated headlines and, of course, has an impact on people. But you get a feeling that people have gone beyond that cost of living is an issue. I remember the Dr. Mahathir years when my dad was the breadwinner, that you had a lot of privatization, a lot of pink forms. There seemed to be an air of confidence and prosperity. Now, how is both of you and your coalition, and what are they going to do if it comes to power on this matter?
Actually, at this moment, our country should be among the most prosperous country in the world. If you look at the figures, you find that companies and banks today make profits in excess of billions of dollars. Before, when we were building this country, if you can make 300 million, that was great. So when people make money, the government makes money because the government taxes the profits. At this moment, there should not be any problem with financing, but because there is abuse of the country's, the government's funds, then we seem to be very poor. And because we are very poor, the government thinks the only way to overcome this is to raise taxes. And of course, then it hits the people. People find it difficult to understand 1MDB. They cannot even figure out what is $1 billion, 1 billion ringgit. But they can understand GST, they can understand tax being levied on people who sleep in hotels, and now you go to the airport, you have to pay 1 ringgit. There are taxes and taxes being added, which before there was none. There was no need for, at a time when we were not so prosperous. So we think there is a lot of abuses going on in the governments, so much so that the government has to tax the people. And this is what the people understand, and this is what they feel very much against.
And would you abolish the GST? And any other taxes? What would you do?
Well, the GST replaces the sales tax. So if we abolish the GST, we must restore the sales tax. But all processes by government should be done stage by stage. You suddenly abolish and you have no source of income, that will be very bad for the government. In the past, of course, even with petroleum, if we had to raise the price of petrol, we do that stage by stage so that it doesn't hurt the people. And this can be reversed in a way that will not hurt the people and will not hurt the government finances.
I think the greatest challenge for the Pakatan Harapan will be how to make the 1MDB scandal relate to the real life of the people, because it does. I think probably should see the 1MDB as like an octopus, snuffing out all creativity of the country and strangling the country. And it's important because I think we must dare to make Malaysians dream again that we can be great, we can be world class, we can be the best, the first. At present, we dare not think of these high dreams, because we are a great global kleptocracy, very shameful, very humiliating.
Both of you have been talking about global kleptocracy, Malaysia being kleptocrats, and this is the thing. Sir, you're 92 years old, you're 76 years old, and someone commented that between both of you, talking about 168 years of experience. That's triple the age of Malaysia. Where are the young leaders that are coming out? Why do two men who have done so much haven't retired in a great country to retire? And so who do you think, sir, will come with you? The young ones, below 45, below 40, I don't know.
I think they are around, but the idea that you should replace the old with the new, just like that, doesn't work. The old has the experience, the youth, the young people have got the ideals. You have to marry experience and ideal if you want to produce result. So people see us because we have been in the picture most of the time. But the young leaders are there, they're coming up, and they have to learn quite a lot of things. Eventually they will take over whether we like it or not.
We have a lot of young leaders in the DAP, Anthony Loh, Tony Pua, Yu Chin Tong, Nien Chin, Diana, Rara, Sufira, Hanayo, a long list of them. In fact, the only, the 45, in the young generation, we have Ge Yi, we have my new political secretary, 25 years old. I started when I was 25 years old. We have Jamaluddin. I think it is necessary. We must be able to reach out to the young, and the young must be able to play a role. But it does not mean that the oldsters, so to say, have a role to play. In fact, I would like to see more Malaysians, so in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s, come forward together with the young Malaysians to reset nation-building policies.
Okay. Does that mean both of you will stand for elections?
That is the question they always ask. But we cannot say no absolutely, because we may have a need. But at the moment, I have no wish to be a candidate again.
Sir?
Possible.
That's a good one. Because I think the thing is, as I said, growing up, I know both of you, I've heard about you, I read about you. So you retired in 2003. You're still in Parliament. I'm going to be 50 next year. I'm still reporting about both of you. That's very strange.
But about other people as well.
Yeah.
New young generation of Malaysians.
So yeah, we are doing that. Okay. I think the one name which I have not mentioned in this inside talk is Anwar Ibrahim. He's in jail. I remember when the day he was sacked. I remember that. I'm sure you remember that, sir. What does it feel like to again work with Anwar Ibrahim?
If you keep on harping on the past, then of course we will be enemies forever. But this thing that we are struggling for is too big for us. What happened to us matters very little. So if I were to say, well, this man called me names and all that, and therefore I can work with him, this is a way of ensuring that the present government will stay on. For the present government to be defeated, the opposition must be united. It has been shown time and again that single parties cannot overcome this huge coalition of 13 parties. So we have to come together. At this moment, yeah, we admit that we had differences in the past. I think he is willing to forget. I'm willing to forget. I mean, he also said nasty things to me, but that's okay. I mean, it doesn't hurt me. In politics, you have to accept being called names. To me, it doesn't hurt. I never even replied before. But now I think the prime cause of our coming together is the overthrow of this kleptocratic government. And that overrides everything else.
Our position, the DAP position has always been constant and consistent. We agree that Anwar should be the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Well, of course, if next 14 general elections, even if he win, he won't be in a position to be the Prime Minister. He will be the 8th Prime Minister, not the 7th Prime Minister. Who will be the 7th Prime Minister is something for the Pakatan Harapan leadership to decide and to a consensus. But there's no doubt that I think the country owes a lot to Anwar for his role and his contributions and sacrifices, and I think we should move on from there.
So why are we going on personality? Why should the Prime Minister be someone we have to reward because of what he has done? Shouldn't the Prime Minister be elected by first among equals, by the MPs and all that? Why do we still go on personally driven politics?
No, it's not personal. I mean, the people have a choice, you know. That's why we have not named a Prime Minister, the 7th Prime Minister. Well, there cannot be an 8th Prime Minister without the 7th Prime Minister. So how do we find the 8th Prime Minister? I think at that time, democracy would have been restored, and I think the usual process would have to follow. But I'm quite sure that people are normally grateful and wish to reward people for their deeds. So if because of that they feel a need for them to show their appreciation, that is their right. But of course the young people may not think so much about that. They may have other ideas.
I do not think that we should reward, as a reward, to be a basis to be a Prime Minister. It would be what we think, his vision, his programs for future for the country, rather than for the past services and contributions. So I don't accept that it should be a basis for reward.
Okay. One of the things is when we talk about reward, gratitude is there's a fair number of Malaysians who are stuck in a moment. They're stuck in a moment that says, I don't want to support Dr. Mahathir Mohamad or Lim Kit Siang because they haven't said sorry. Dr. Mahathir Mohamad not saying sorry for everything that happened in your 22 years. Saudara Lim Kit Siang not saying sorry for all the things you say about the leaders from Barisan Nasional. What do you say, sir?
Yeah, again we are going to put into considerable consideration simple personal feelings. That has no role. Now we are up against a man who is destroying this country. You want to say, before you do that, please say, I'm sorry. I think that is too small to consider. Now our aim is to get together to overthrow this kleptocrat. That is the main, because he's destroying this country. We are owing huge sums of money which we cannot pay, you know, and his policy of divide and rule, separating the Malays from the Chinese so that he can get Malay support, because he believes Malays can be bribed much more easily than Chinese. This is destroying the unity of the people. So do we want to say, well, until you say sorry, you cannot do anything? Do we want to have that? Or do you want to give priority to rescuing this country from evil hands? Mm-hmm.
I think there has to be a single-minded determination to bring about change. As this is the option is really terrible to think. If you fail this time, the 14th general election, to bring about change, then I think we may be stuck for a decade or two. And we will be hurtled along the trajectory of a failed and a rogue state, and it will be very difficult to recover. We may end up like an African nation. And I think this is a preeminent imperative, and I think all Malaysians, regardless of race, of religion, even of politics. That's why I say that we need to reach out to the UMNO members, reach out to the past members, if the leadership are immune to such reaching out to bring about this change.
Mm-hmm. How far have you seen the response to this fact that if Pakatan cannot win the 14th general election, this country, as you say, will hurtle towards disaster, so to speak?
But it's quite obvious that Najib has gone from bad to worse. Initially, his policies were bad, but tolerable.
You supported him, sir?
Yeah, I supported him in the 13th election, despite the fact that he jettisoned all the schemes, all the projects that we had already agreed upon. I was able to overcome that feeling, but now he has caused the country to be indebted to huge amounts of money, and they know what happens when you are unable to pay your debts. You'll become bankrupt. You'll become like Greece. And he is still hurtling along the same direction, spending huge sums of money on the Eastern Railway. What for? People can fly from Kota Baru to KL. They don't want to go by train. And even the West Coast train has never made any profit. You see, so the whole idea is to borrow money. And then we are settled with the money. And that money which you borrow, 55 billion, part of that is going to go to the contractor who is from China, because that is part of the agreement, and the money will go back to China. But even after using the money to pay the contractor, we still had a debt of 55 billion, and we need to pay that debt, in addition to other debts. You see, and I don't know what else his idea is, well, if I don't have money to pay, I'll sell land. He's selling land by the thousands of acres. I mean, you can't imagine what happened in long ago when Singapore was sold to the British. We lost Singapore. But you sell land to other people, you lose control over the land.
There are people who are thinking in terms of 15th and 16th general elections. I think that's a fallacy. You must be single-mindedly focused on the 14th general election. Because if you don't make it in the 14th general election, there may be no 15 or 16 general elections. So I think there should only be one single-minded objective. And it is possible. It is possible, and it is something which is within the means of Malaysians to bring about the change.
Okay. So if there's one thing you can tell all Malaysians, what would it be?
People must love their country. This is where they are born, they are brought up, they live here, and they should love this country. And if they love this country, they must fight for it. In other countries, people die to fight for their country. We're not asking them to die. We're asking them just to put a cross against Pakatan Harapan. That's all. It's a very minor thing. Maybe you might be, income tax people may harass you and all that, but that is minor compared to what you see in other countries where people demonstrate daily and some of them get killed during the process, yet they continue until they overthrow these unwanted leaders.
Time and tide waits for no man. All Malaysians must seize this opportunity, or we may not have it, another such opportunity to bring about change, to save the nation, to reset nation-building policies.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just heard from Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, Saudara Lim Kit Siang in over 40 minutes discussing issues of the day, how they work, how they come to work together, and what is crucial for Malaysia and Malaysians in the next general elections. I wish you a good day and thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.